When I found out how sick he was, the doctor suggested hospice care at home. Hospice helped so much. He came home, and that was wonderful. They helped me take care of him. They made his last months comfortable, pain-free. We were able to find some joy till the very end.
All right, well, we're back. We're talking about step families and some really great information. I hope you're really listening up because this can help all of us. Even if you're in a traditional family, it can still help you because they've said some really great things and really making our families better. And I do believe because of your faith, you know that God is over the family. That's the only way it can really work like, we want it to work, is that we have to put him in front. Right. And I'm certainly with all the issues that we face in our families, we have to have, someone who we can, have a trust in, our faith in, and that person, I believe. Right. I believe in God. And you talk about that, how your faith has really, helped you go, carry on and through the issues that you've had with your husband who's come on the show, Randy, and we thank you, Tabitha, for coming on. So your faith has really made a difference.
It definitely played a role for us because we knew that on our own strength, we couldn't do this. Right. It's not natural to easily love someone else's child. Yeah. And when they're living in
Say that again, because that's all right, what you just said, because some people think that they can love someone else's child. Not that it's impossible, but it takes a lot of work.
It doesn't come naturally.
Right.
It doesn't mean you can't, but
right.
It doesn't come naturally.
And some people are beating themselves up because they're like, I know why I can't feel the same for my husband's children as I feel for because that child came as biblical from your womb.
Exactly.
And it's just something that's automatically going to be different, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn to love that child.
That's right, and that relationship won't grow into a very loving relationship. Right. But in the beginning, certainly there's going to be times that you're not going to feel the same kind of love that you feel for your biological kids. Right. And so for us, definitely faith played a role in us relying on the Lord to help us learn how to love this child that's not mine, how to deal with these issues in our home that are challenging, that there's not a roadmap for.
Right.
And so definitely for us, following some of the biblical principles of things that are discussed in Galatians on the fruit of the Spirit, living with love and joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness. If those are traits in your home, then you're certainly going to have a smoother time bonding with your stepkids and interacting with your spouse and all of those things.
So Randy, you all have been married, you told me, about 17 years.
Yes, sir.
And you have 4 children and 1 child together?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me some of your struggles as a father, because you're having to come and, be the man of the house. And so, everything, whether it works out or whether there are problems or issues, it usually falls back on the man if we want to be biblical. Gail, says, okay, Randy, you need to get this straight. We need to make this work. So how has it been for you?
Well, successful single parenting, and so my kids were in line with me. And so as we joined our families, that was something that I probably tried to do too quickly, is expecting these 2 new blonde girls to fall in line with my leadership or my style of life. And so that was difficult, in which I had to learn to back off in order to do that. And anyway, and I enjoyed my son as far as just the father-son and athletics and all those things that we can enjoy together, but it was obviously different, and I had to balance that with a household of girls. In this case.
A household of girls, right. And so you had how many children now before you married?
2. I had a daughter and a son.
You had a daughter and a son. And you had, again?
I had 2 girls.
And 2 girls, okay. So now it's in the house, 3 girls and 1 boy.
That's correct.
Okay. And then you all had
we had a son together,
okay.
6 years later. So we had a period of time as we were trying to blend our family before we stepped out to have a child together.
And I know most time when people get married, they want a child usually together. That's be something that you really should discuss. Because you already got, children from both marriages, and it's difficult and issues. Now you're going to have this child that you share both together, which most people want a child to share with someone that they love.
Well, you've heard of Abraham and Sarah.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
we were 40 when Nathan was born.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes, and
so
we were intentional though in giving it some time because we did know we needed to let these kids learn how to live together and how to get along before we could bring another one into the picture.
Right.
But the beauty of then bringing us having one together is that child unites all the relationships because all of these kids have him in common. As far as now, he is a half brother to them.
Right.
So there is some of that you see can unite a family when another child comes.
Let me ask you, is this a good thing to say? And I know some people never say stepchildren. They never say, this is my stepdaughter, stepson. They say, these are my children. Is it better to say, these are my children? Do people have to know, well, these are my husband too, and these are my two, and when you should you just say, these are our children? Yours, mine, and ours. We talked about the old movie with Lucille Ball, I think, Henry Fonda, or whatever, from many years ago.
Well, I think you need to be sensitive to your stepchildren because they have another mother and they may not be comfortable with you saying these are my children. So I think that needs to be discussed with the stepchildren. How do you feel about us introducing us as a family?
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, great. All right, Tabitha, tell us a little bit about you. So you have been married how long?
4.5 years.
Okay, and you had children from your previous marriage?
That's correct.
And your husband as well?
Yes.
Okay, so how are things going with you all after 4 years?
Yeah,
what have you learned and what have you found out to be very difficult?
We've had a rough road, honestly, I will have to say. And you know, I'll be honest and say that probably once a week I thought to myself, I don't know if I can do this much longer. It is a difficult path when you don't have the proper tools. And then once I found the support group at First Bossier and we did the Smart Step Family study, we got tools and it was just like a revelation, just a whole new world opened up for us. But if you don't have the proper tools and you're just kind of struggling, I'll tell you, I like this paradox of, Ron talks about this in his book, of Moses going up to part the Red Sea, and it's like, that's how I was feeling. That is so scary to me, and to move forward and to just go through those struggles. Of course, on the other side is the promised land, but it was easier for me to turn and run back to where I was, which I was a single mom for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So it was easier for me to be a single mom than it was for me to continue with the struggles of being a step parent and a blended family at times. But
so Tabitha, just to help someone out there, so you went in there pretty much blindsided. What did you think? You thought it was just going to be all hunky-dory and that, you know, your husband and you are going to get together and all the children, everybody's going to be like this great Brady Bunch type family? Or what did you think?
Well, we had another unique situation where our children went to school and were friends before we married, so they knew each other and they kind of brought us together.
Oh, okay.
They wanted us to meet and we started dating after the kids started playing together and that type of thing. So that was a unique dynamic. We kind of didn't have to worry about the kids not getting along. But yes, I kind of thought at this moment in time that you could just kind of love each other through it. You know, you just love can conquer all, and we wanted this more than anything, and we'll just, whatever comes our way, we'll face it as it goes on. And sometimes that doesn't always work.
So Randy, what advice would you give to a man out there, let's take it from their perspective there, who's thinking about, you know, remarrying because he has children, this woman he's going to marry has children, some things that they may not be looking for because, you know, sometimes love is blind. Love hides a multitude of faults, and especially when you're dating, you know, you kind of let everything go. You know, you don't really want to, bring up certain issues, and you want to talk about certain things, and you're just hoping it'll go away. And then when you get married, then all this, you know, suddenly these things surface right to the top.
To start your marriage and your personal journey on a spiritual journey to become closer to God, to know what your relationship is personally. As you as individuals grow closer to that relationship to your Heavenly Father, you ultimately will become closer to one another. And I know Gayla has said that already on the program, is that without faith, without a church family, without a forgiving Creator, Father, we might be another statistic. It was difficult. So for me, that is grounded. We met in the church, so that gave us a foundation to begin our marriage with strongly.
So can you ever do things like this and that is all right? You know, take your child shopping. Is that all right to do?
Yes. In fact,
okay.
In fact, it's really a good thing, especially in the beginning, to allow the child some one-on-one time with their biological parent. You don't need to do everything as a family all the time. The kids need some one-on-one time with that parent, without the step-parent, without step-siblings.
That's all right.
It's all right.
Good.
It's a good
Gayla,
thing.
good. Okay, okay.
No, we really recommend
You encourage that, okay.
Yes. Over time, it may move more into you do everything as a family, but in the beginning, the kids need some time, which is their biological parent.
Right. And so that has to be, I guess, when you talk about that, Tabitha, understood between the husband as well. Okay, you know, I want to do this with my children this weekend. You know, these were friends we had prior to meeting you. We want to go visit them, you know, with your children. But that should be discussed.
Yes,
and made sure that, you know, that you all are on the same page with it. Right.
Yes, you have to discuss a lot. Communication is key.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what issues do you see that you've had that you seem to perhaps are overcoming now? I know you said it was really tough. So what have you learned? What are some things you're doing differently than you did at the beginning?
Being much more flexible and open, and not so, you know, if you talk about, like, you know, things that have had to change, like, you know, I'll give you an example of, like, the holidays. Christmas doesn't have to be celebrated on December 25th. We've had to kind of overcome that. You know, that's something that we may not have all of the children. We may have only one or two, and then two more come at a different time. And so we have multiple Christmas celebrations and coming up with our own family traditions. And it's just this ever-evolving relationship. And people change every day, things change every day, and you have to change with it. And then you just have to, communication is key. You have to keep communicating with your spouse, because you have to change together and discuss things that's good for the family together. But you have to be flexible and patient.
Right. And then you have to learn how to, we're going to take a break, but how do you respond to remarks that you hear that you don't really like me, you know, you don't care anything about me, you're not treating me right? Do you respond all the time to that? Or how do you respond, to those, you know, accusations that, you know, most time we hear children saying to their mom or stepdad? We'll talk about that after we come back after the break.
Yeah, but did you see how much he had to drink last night? I can't believe that guy made it home. Nobody drives drunk anymore. Hold on, I got another call coming in.
While drunk driving rates have dropped greatly, negligent driving and speeding fatalities have skyrocketed. Someone dies every 13 minutes from negligent driving, so keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and your phone put away.
We're just about to end our show. We're talking about step families, and we probably could talk for hours and not answer all the questions you have. But at the end of the show, we're going to have a phone number, and they have a website, and they have weekly support meetings that you can become a part of. It can only help you. And so if you're a part of a step family, you really need to go to these meetings and get with Randy and Gayla and really talk about some of the issues that you're having, because you're not alone. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen on the show, that people who are watching, you know, you're not the only one having that problem, and that other people are having that problem. So how do you handle when you seem like you've tried, but the child just thinks that you don't like them? They make the snobbish remarks, you know, loud enough for you to hear them, that you don't like me, you know, you don't care anything about me, you know, you don't support me, you know. How do you handle that?
Well, you have to recognize it's normal, for one thing. Depending on the age of the child, too, the kids during their teenage years you might experience that even more than you would the kids that are the younger kids.
And that happens to traditional family in teenage years. I don't think it matters.
It does.
All teenagers. You don't like me. Well, I brought you into the world and you still don't like me. So,
exactly. But you do want to be careful that you don't allow disrespect. And so you do, the name calling or some of those things that kids might try, you don't want to allow disrespect. But you do have to recognize that the kids have suffered a huge loss themselves, either through divorce or death, and they may not have really wanted this remarriage that you and your spouse want. And so you need to have some empathy for your kids as they are sorting through their own emotions about what has happened, and realize that they're on their own journey that is probably not gonna, they're not gonna be at the same place you are. They're behind in trying to accept the new marriage. So there really needs to be some empathy for what the kids are going through also. Right.
And how do you handle the remarks that you hear from the ex-spouse? Because I'm sure, have you heard any that, you know, the child brings back and say, you know, my mom, you know, said this about you or whatever, because they're trying to, like you're saying, it's been difficult for them. So they're trying to lower your standards of you as the parent, you know, by saying other things that the parent, that their mother or father may have said. And sometimes they do say those things in front of the child so they can say them in front of you just to make you, belittle you. So how do you handle that? Do you sit the child down and say, well, you know, I'm sorry your mother feels that way about me, but I really care about you, and I'm hoping that, you know, we can really work things out here?
I wish I said it that eloquently at times. But, I mean,
I probably went on TV, so I'm sure.
The message is still kind of the same, though. You know, you just try to find a little niche of something that, you know, you don't want to go in with the feeling that you're going to replace the mother, or or that I would even, you know, even want to go there, but almost like create something new and special that's different, that they're comfortable with.
Okay. That's a good point. So, Randy, do you ask them to call you Dad, or call you Randy, or call you, what, Mr. Grace? I mean, I guess it depends on the comfort level. Well, but should anybody ever expect the other children to call them Dad or Mom if they don't want to?
Well, because we both brought children into the home, it was a little bit difficult at first, because she's Mom and I'm Dad, but I'm Randy and she's Gayla. Right. And so it was interesting just trying to get to the dinner table at night. But certainly a blessing in our life and the dynamics. When the girls were high school, early high school, they asked Gayla, she goes, can we call Randy Dad? Okay. And that was really just because of the amount of time that we spent, and really the community knew us more as a family, didn't see us as a step family. Right. And so some of that you just have to let evolve. Right. It can, or it might not in different families, but obviously when I was Randy, and now being Dad is a blessing.
Blessing. And I guess from what you said, which is a really great point, Gayla, what Randy is saying, you let them decide, because if they feel comfortable enough, you know, when you got from Randy to Dad, that was like, dog, okay, we're getting here. We're getting to the point that I want to get. They're feeling comfortable calling me Dad. So, because Randy still, as a first name, even for a stepchild, is a kind of a distance. But, you know,
but I don't think that a step-parent should feel bad if they never get to that point of calling them Mom or Dad. Right. Because particularly if there is another Mom or Dad in the picture that they interact with frequently, then they very likely will never begin to call that step-parent Mom or Dad. And that's okay. The step-parent should not take that personally. Right. That is just the position that the stepchild feels more comfortable with. Right. So my stepchildren still call me Gayla. And I'm okay with that. So I think you do let the child decide based on just what feels more comfortable for them.
Right. So I guess what we're saying here Tabitha, is you don't pressure them into calling you something that they may not feel comfortable with, only because sometimes people want to do that because they think that's going to make them, the relationship better, and them feel better about this child calling them mom. But if they don't feel it in their heart, if it doesn't come really from the heart, it's best they call you, Tabitha.
Right.
If, because that doesn't really make the relationship better or worse. It's just how they feel comfortable doing.
Absolutely.
And so have you gotten to that point yet? Are your children older or young?
Yeah, we have 4 teenagers right now.
Okay.
And,
yeah, you did say that. I remember
And once again, our situation might be a little unusual for most people because the kids were friends and knew each other. So for more than 2 years, I was Brooke's mom, or Miss Tabitha.
Right.
And then Jim was my son's soccer coach, so he was Coach Jim.
Okay.
And so I think for years before we were even married that we were introduced as different people. And so we have not evolved to our stepchildren on either side calling each other mom or dad, but we're okay. It's just something that it's not that big of a deal. You don't really. It's not about that.
Right.
And the same with the children. Do you say, this is my step brother, step sister? Is that how you prefer that they introduce each other, or you just let them handle that as well?
Again, you let it evolve.
Okay.
In our situation, the kids do now, when they introduce each other, say, this is my brother, this is my sister. But again, that is going to take some time, and it depends on the age of the kids when you marry, and so different dynamics as to whether or not they will introduce as stepsisters, and also whether they live together in the home. That can make a difference.
Okay.
If
That's
you have
true.
one who primarily lives somewhere else and is rarely in the home, then it's going to be slower for that relationship to bond, and it may always feel more like a step relationship.
Okay.
And so they may always refer to it that way.
Right. Okay. You wanted to make some points, Randy? Oh, you were looking, so I thought you had something. So let's talk about. You talk about some advice that you would give about co-parenting successfully. And you've talked about some of those things, really communicating and it's all right if the child doesn't call you mom, or if you don't feel as strongly about your stepchildren as you do your own child, because that's just human nature. And so you shouldn't feel guilty because that little pit in your stomach is saying, I really don't like this child as much as I like my own. But it's really about caring and really respecting that child and making that child feel a part of the family, because biologically, you're going to always be more connected to someone who's a part of you.
More likely, certainly. Blood is thicker than water, and so that is definitely, over time, that may change. But in the beginning, certainly, you'll have more of an attachment with your biological child. But it doesn't mean that you can't be fair and respectful and to all of the kids in your home, because that is important.
Right. So what advice would you give people who are watching? I know you were going to talk about your support group and things that are coming up, that it can work, but it takes a lot of prayer. And as Tabitha said, because she said, with the teenagers, a lot of praying and a lot of more praying. And then one more prayer before bedtime.
And if I could add also, one of the things that a couple should not lose sight of is that them as a couple should come above everything else. There's going to be the trials and tribulations of raising the children, and there also is going to be trials and tribulations of ex-spouses. They're creating conflict or havoc or whatever, and don't try to solve these issues on your own. Make sure that you lean very heavily on your spouse and you grow that relationship above everything else, and the other things will come easier and more natural for you.
I asked this before the show, and Gayle, you were saying that you hadn't experienced that, but you may have heard, when you get married, remarry, and you have adult children, is it somewhat different? Because at least they're not in the home, hopefully. When I said, well, my point being adult children who are out on their own, but they still have to, learn dad's new wife and our mom's new husband. Is it a little bit easier only because they don't live with you?
Well, I think it's going to depend on the personality of the child, because you could have some adult children who are not interested in accepting a new spouse for mom or dad, and could make it really difficult on that step relationship. So because they're not there day in and day out, certainly it's different. But I don't know that it's going to be easier or easy, because I think, again, you could still have some difficult situations to deal with.
And I think about just traditional, marriages. I say marriage is tough enough. Anybody who's married know that you have your issues, and marriage is a really tough, thing. People coming together and having to make decisions and don't always agree can really be tough. And then I think when you bring in, the step families, that's another, issue along with what you're already experiencing, you know, already. And so I guess what we're trying to say here, that it can work, but don't go in blindsided thinking that it's going to be, you know, a perfect relationship, a bonding of everybody together. It's going to take a lot of work, just as it does any marriage, and that you can't expect someone to just overnight, you know, that you become this great family, that it takes time, as Tabitha is agreeing, in years cultivating, Gaylor, to really become a good family, a lot of prayer and faith to really make it work. Yeah.
And also, something we haven't touched on is conflict resolution. There needs to be good communication and good conflict resolution, because you are going to have conflict. And if you struggle in those areas, I would suggest that you get help, maybe professionally through a minister or something, to understand how to resolve conflict as it arises. Right,
because we know children will act out, and sometimes they do it just because they want to get back at the parent. So tell us about, you have a support group at First Baptist Bossier. Tell us about that and how that works.
Well, on Wednesday evenings during the fall and spring semester, they have what's called First Baptist University, and they offer classes of different subject topics, and the Smart Step Family is one that was embraced.
Okay.
And so we lead this discussion. It's also supported with a video series by Ron Deal, in which we come and watch the video, and then we lead discussion and have open discussion about what are the needs of families in that. And so we're really blessed to be this personally, and then we were able to embrace this and been supported by the church in order to do this ministry work.
Well, great, and I think this is really a great ministry that's really needed in every church, because we're just saying that, you know, traditional families are slowly dying out, and so it's a great ministry that your church should really be a part of. If you can't come to this, then you may need to look at doing something at your church. You know, if you're pastoring or whatever, or you may be led to start a ministry at your church to help those if you're in a step family yourself, and if you're, you know, trying to work it out and make it work right for you. And what is there is a phone number or website that people who are watching?
I have a website, stepparentingwithgrace.com.
Step Parenting with Grace. I like that. Grace, God's grace, amazing
that's right.
grace.
And that's our last name, so it worked perfectly.
Stepparentingwithgrace.com. Okay.
On that information, on that website, there's contact information, phone number, email, also a blog that gives updated stories, articles in regards to challenges that step families face.
Well, thank you all very much. Step Parenting with Grace. Thank you. Thank you all very much. It's a great ministry, and I know that God is going to continue to bless you all to help other families to live the kind of lives that He would want us to live, and to enjoy each other, because we shouldn't be a struggle every day, but families should be what God wants them to be, you know, happy, loving, and thriving. So thank you all for what you do. That's our show. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on Citywide TV Presents.